So perpetual war is very useful to these people. To this slime bag who's president now, George E. Bush, he wants war all the time. Except this last one isn't going that well, so he's cooled back a little. But war suspends the critical judgment of people. They all rally around the leader. You know, the Germans were doing that, or some segment of Germany was pushing that line. It was called Führerprinzip, right? The leadership principle. That in the Führer, in the leader of the state, there's the embodiment of the state. And what he says is it. That's the expression of our very souls. As Rudolf Hess said about Adolf Hitler at the big Nuremberg rally, he says, do not search for Adolf Hitler with your brains. You will find him with your hearts. Adolf Hitler is Germany, and Germany is Adolf Hitler. And an American idiom, that's sort of what we're getting here. No, I mean, it's that Americans wouldn't go quite for a line like that. But it's say, trust our leader. We have to do this. We're facing these dangers, and we all have to rally, support our troops, blah, blah, blah. And check your brains at the door. Check your critical facilities, and any expression of critical intelligence will be treated as a manifestation of lack of patriotism and treason and cavorting with the terrorists. That's the kind of line that they're trying to feed us. Well, perpetual war, perpetual crisis does that. It's also a way of covering domestic sins, you know. Federalist Paper number 6, Alexander Hamilton, 1787, he said, 1787, he said, many a leader pursues overseas adventures so to distract the people from their domestic grievances. Does that sound familiar at all? And in July of last year, not this July, the July before this one, the Republican Party was reeling from those scandals. Enron, Halliburton, Harkin, all of these things. The Republican Party was seen as the party of corporate scandal. And two of their top leaders, the president and vice president, both implicated in insider trading, so obviously refusing to cooperate, refusing to hand over documents. In July of 2002, by November, by October rather, the airwaves were filled with war talk. Iraq, war talk, war talk. The Republican Party now reemerged as the party of defense, patriotism, a strong America protecting us from this mortal threat, this imminent danger, Saddam Hussein, who is going to attack us any day with weapons of mass delusion. And they won a midterm election that they should have never won. Along with maintaining superpower status and along with these domestic advantages, another domestic advantage, let me mention, as you know, is making the war against democracy, because democracy is a real challenge to capitalism. Democracy was a wonderful invention by the people of history. That's what it was under Cleisthenes in ancient Greece in the 5th century, 4th century. That's what it was in Rome in the late 6th century BC. And for 500 years, democracy was an invention by the people of history, the ordinary working people of history. I wrote a book about it. It's right there called The Assassination of Julius Caesar, A People's History of Ancient Rome. It was an invention by the people to protect themselves against the abuses of wealth. That's what democracy was. It was born in class struggle. And that's what it still is today. And that's why it's very annoying and very bothersome to the powers that be. And a way to get around it is to circumscribe it, to limit it, to intimidate people, to pass repressive laws, all again under the guise of protecting you and saving you from some terror. And we hear that the terrorists are after us because we're rich, we're prosperous, and we're free. And they hate this about us. But you know what? I've been doing some reading. I read an interview of Osama bin Laden by Robert Fisk in an old issue of The Nation, 1998. I just happened to find it in a pile of materials. And he says, America is the demon and is our enemy because they have betrayed us, they've come here, they've destroyed our way, they've undermined us. The guys who tried to blow up the World Trade Center and killed how many, 200 people the first time, remember in 1993 when they went on trial? They said, we attacked you because you won't leave us alone. Because you've come to our countries, you've taken our wealth, you take our land. That's what they say. They don't say it's because, oh, we're just so jealous of you. You got everything and we got nothing. They say, we just want you to leave us alone. We want you to get your boot off the back of our neck. That's why they do this. So I know the best way we could fight terrorism is by undermining and getting rid of the causes of terrorism, by leaving those people alone and helping them in their popular movements and in their attempts to build a better life instead of supporting their oppressors and becoming their oppressors. Don't take my word for it. Everything I've been saying here, don't take my word for it. We always say that actions speak louder than words. There are times when words speak louder than actions. When you're trying to decide what is the intent of an action, where the person can't deny the action, but they deny the intent and they give you another thing. The problem with trying to establish the intent is that nobody's ever seen an intent or a motive. It's not empirical. It's not an empirical thing. Intent is something that is only ascribed or imputed or deducted. You say, well, he did that because of this, I think, and you look at it that way. Now, what's very interesting is when some people, like rulers, come out and actually give the real intent. They don't talk about democracy and this and that. They tell you what their real interests are. Let me read you a member of the ruling class. He was a partner, senior partner, in one of the richest corporate lawyer firms in America, in New York. It was called the Dulles Brothers. His brother, Allen Dulles, served for a stretch as director of the CIA. He himself, John Foster Dulles, was Secretary of State under Dwight Eisenhower. And this is what he says. He actually comes out and he says it. He says, in order to bring a nation to support the burden of maintaining great military establishments all over the world and at home, it is necessary to create an emotional state akin to war psychology. There must be the portrayal of external menace. This involves the development to a high degree of the hero nation versus the villain nation ideology, and the arousing of the population to a sense of sacrifice. Once these exist, we have gone a long way on the path to war. And he's being very positive about this. He's saying this is a good thing, clever thing. That's John Foster Dulles. So they come out and they say it. I want to read to you one other thing. This was written by a man named Tom Watson. He was a U.S. Senator in 1898. He wasn't a Democrat and he wasn't a Republican. He was a populist. And the populists were a people's party, especially strong in the South and the West, with a lot of working class support and a lot of poor farmer support. And they had actually elected a few senators. And they also elected a few governors and some members of the House of Representatives. Watson was a senator at this time. In 1898, that's when the U.S. went into this war against Spain to grab Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines and become an empire. But that isn't the story they fed to the people. They said, we got to go in just to help the poor Cubans who are being mercilessly treated by the Spaniards. So that's why we're doing this, just because we're so upset about the Cubans and their cotton and their tobacco and their sugar and the Philippines, which they never mentioned at all. They just went and sent an army and a fleet to the Philippines. Well, the war hype got stirred up, and this is what Watson observed, and this is what he wrote. The Spanish War has finished us reformers. The blare of the bugle drowns the voice of the reformer. Who gets the benefit of the war? This is Watson. The bond seekers, the capitalists, the railroads. National bankers will profit by this war. The new bonds give them the basis for new banks, and their power is prolonged. The privileged classes all profit by this war. It takes the attention of the people off economic issues and perpetuates the unjust economic system they have put upon us. Politicians profit by the war. It buries issues they dare not meet. What do the people get out of this war? The fighting and the taxes. What is the United States doing in this war with Spain in the first place? True, Spain is oppressing Cuba, but so is England oppressing Ireland, Egypt, and India. This is 1898 now. France is oppressing Siam and Madagascar. Turkey is oppressing Armenia. Should we then take up arms against the oppressors of the world? We would more likely end up by becoming oppressors ourselves. The Spaniards and Cubans were bushwhacking one another and killing from 3 to 5 men at a battle. We have gone down there and killed more people in 3 months than they would have killed in 13 years. If they were starving before, who feeds them now? What are we going to get out of this war as a nation? Endless trouble, complications, expense. Republics can't go into the conquering business and remain republics. Militarism leads to military domination, military despotism. Imperialism smooths the way for the emperor. And as you know, in every president, there's an emperor that's trying to get out, you know.